young folks out there, when they're just getting started, you'll get an opportunity. What you do with it is all about execution. All right, guys, welcome back to The Six. My name is Sandy Cerami, your host, and I'm here with my man making the magic happen behind the camera, Hollywood Capone of Capone Studios. And we are at Bakari Grill once again over in Washington Township, New Jersey. Got my man, the amazing Barney, keeping us well hydrated over here today. We are missing our boy, Double D, Deshaun Drummond, my cohort in crime, and I wish he was here because before we turned on the camera, these three ladies had everybody laughing in the restaurant, which is no surprise. We got quite a few characters to my right over here. So I'll start off right over here with Michelle Arpin Begina. She is one of my favorite people in town in Wyckoff. And she is a senior partner at Snowden Lane and a VP at Morgan Stanley as well. She's a very sought after behavioral economics and financial psychology expert. So she's going to share with us a little bit about her journey into the field of finance. She's also a member of the New Jersey Council of Economic Education, something that I probably need a lot of help with these days. She also is on the Financial Literacy Committee for the New Jersey Board of Education, and we need that badly, as you know. To my right over here is Erin Saxton, the lady who gets done. Currently the president of 11 Communications. They specialize in brand image, corporate media communications, PR, crisis management, overall marketing strategies. Did I touch upon pretty much everything?
You touched everything about me.
She is also a four-time Emmy award-winning producer.
Emmy nominated.
Emmy nominated.
I'm like the Susan Lucci. I didn't win it yet.
That's all right. I'd rather have you here
Makes me mad.
anyway.
I'm very upset about it.
But you're here.
Yeah.
That's all that matters.
Yeah.
A producer on The View, all right, a show some of our viewers may have heard of before, and she's worked with people like Jack Canfield, Chicken Soup for the Soul, a superstar, Barbara Walters and company over at The View, so brings with her a wealth of knowledge and experience in the media world and public relations. And to my right, the secret weapon, all right, Bridget Beyer, one of my buddies, been like my sister, right, truthfully like my sister. Currently the dealer principal at Beyer, Ford & Chrysler in Morristown, New Jersey. She's also the managing partner of a 105-year-old family-owned business with 4 locations in Morristown, Fairview, East Hanover, and Walden, New York. They handle the Ford, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram franchises, GMC Light Duty, Volvo, Oshkosh. Am I leaving anything out?
No, you're good.
I covered everything. Fantastic. She is also a member in good standing of the New York and New Jersey Bar. And just recently, I'm really excited to announce this. I can tell everybody, right?
You put in good standing.
In good standing. Well, I know a few lawyers that aren't in such good standing, all right?
As if you'd have somebody not in good standing on the show.
Of course I would. We bring them all.
Oh, it's Hollywood Capone, DD, whatever. I'm thinking maybe you
Double
won't.
D, we got Hollywood Capone. I mean,
Yeah, I know.
Would they admit
Sorry.
it? That's
By the
the
way,
question.
So sorry to stamp on
What
her
do they
bio.
say?
Keep going.
No, every
just saying.
saint has a future. Excuse me, every sinner has a future. Every saint has a past. Personified right over here. I can tell you that. But
Continue.
she is now proudly going to let everybody know that she's a 2018 President's Award winner from Ford Motor Company. Very distinguished. I mean, that is a matter of customer satisfaction, profitability, performance in sales, performance in service. So it's a very well-rounded award. I'm excited for you. I'm excited for your team. It's well-deserved. I knew the crew over there very, very well. And I'm excited to have you three ladies here. I got to be honest with you. When I thought about putting something together with the crew over at the Six to address the Women's History Month topics at hand, you three were at the top of the list. And so I appreciate you guys taking the time out to spend some time with me.
Thanks for having us.
I appreciate it.
It's nice meeting both of you.
Yeah, listen, I put three people with very different backgrounds together here today, right? Two that I think might have been separated at birth over here. Trust me.
Clearly, she and I.
I'm the quiet sister.
Well, you and I are just going to try and keep pace with these two, which is not going to be easy, I can promise you. But I want to talk a little bit about today.
We got a little bit of the Charlie's Angels thing going on, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you got the brunette, the blonde, the redhead.
I mean, am I going to be?
Are you Charlie?
I'd like to be Charlie, but I get often confused with Bosley.
Now we're already seeing your
Okay?
face.
You know. Yeah, as Mary said, I have a face for radio.
At least she didn't say facts of life and I was Natalie.
And Bosley got
No
to spend
doubt.
all the time with the Angels.
I mean, no
so-
That is
offense,
true.
Natalie,
That is
right?
true.
I mean, I'm sure she was the smartest of the bunch,
Yeah,
but
no doubt. As you
Never
can see,
was Blair.
this is going to be a fun run today, I can promise you. I'll struggle just to keep up, there's no doubt. But really, on a more serious note, the stuff that I want to touch upon today, you three ladies have a diverse background in terms of business. All three of you are real go-getters, and that I love about you. Like, you have that hustle factor, all three of you. And I want to talk a little bit about each one of you and how you broke into the field of the business that you're in right now. And I'm going to start in the middle with my friend Erin. Tell us a little bit, how did you get into the media business in the first place?
I slept with all my bosses.
You did well, right to the top.
My
huh?
dad's very proud of me.
Yes. Here's to you, Mr. Saxton.
Okay, so truth, I went to a small college in Pennsylvania. Barely got into that school.
East Stroudsburg?
East Stroudsburg.
Yeah, sure.
Barely got in. Just saying, I should have paid more attention. I normally don't say should to anybody in work, ever, except in my own life. I'm like, shoulda, you know. So I should have taken it a little more seriously.
We share that, my friend.
Because, you know, when I look at, you know, my brother, and he went to Boston College, and my different friends, and they went to like
Mr.
really
Perfect.
great
Mr. Perfect,
school.
yes.
He's awesome.
He is the
when
best.
when I went to those bigger camaraderie schools, and they're just, the networking is there, and maybe it's there for those schools too, like in East Stroudsburg. But at the time, this is now in the 90s. It wasn't where it is now, I think, for networking and camaraderie and even internships. Speaking of why I'm bringing that up is that I had to fight just to get an internship, and they wanted me to intern with either Howard Stern, which camera is mine? And back in the day was his like WOR Channel 9, Snapple, you know, or Blue Ridge Cable. Two great places, but I thought, this doesn't feel like me. So I clawed my way into a Good Morning America internship interview, just the interview.
Just to get to that point.
Just to get to that point. And I had to fight the school, I had to do this, so I get to the interview. And even though I grew up in New Jersey, I was not familiar with the city all that well. My father, Paul Saxton, takes me to the interview, and he sits in the lobby of Good Morning America. He was there, the sweet man, for 6 hours. 6-hour interview, right?
That's love, by the way. We call
Talk
that
about
love.
ask questions before you go on interviews, people. All to my younger audience here, right? Ask better questions, because your father won't sit there for 6 hours. But there are 6 departments at Good Morning America at the time, and each department head got an interview with you for an hour, hence your whole workday. So I learned quickly they were only taking 25 kids. There was over 200 applicants at the time. And I thought, oh. And something clicked. And I went, I got this. Game on. And I've never stopped going like, oh, all right, I got this. I fought so hard to get there with the school and whatever, and I thought, oh, I'm getting one of these.
Yeah, it's amazing because you graduate from a college that arguably doesn't have a great network that you can tap into.
Right.
And you start by creating your own.
Absolutely.
You know, we talk about that on the 6 all the time for the younger folks that are out there, how they need to start building a network like right away. And right away means like when you're in high school, start building your network, like get to know people, right? It helps in every
How'd you
single
do that?
field.
How'd you get to the interview?
My dad, he said, hey, to a few people, what do we have going on? And it's like what we do with all of our kids. It's like, okay, where's my network that I know? Right. I don't know anything about this TV field. My dad's a prominent educator in New Jersey, right? And so he's like, who do I know who's smarter in this than I am? Right. And pull that in, which is a huge tip. Like, don't pretend you know everything. So just surround yourself. I surround myself. I always just want to be the dumbest person in the room.
Great advice,
Always.
by the way, and I don't
Always.
want that lost on our audience. You know, I know a lot of people out there. We know somebody, by the way, who always wants to be the smartest person in the room, don't we? I'm not going to name who that is, but you know who I'm talking about. I love that advice. Like, seek people out that are smarter and more experienced, and then use these two things.
Yeah, but I'm going to stop you on that. Even though he wants to be the smartest one in the room, he's brilliant.
Absolutely.
He has created a monstrous
No question.
brand and business by surrounding himself with people that are smarter than him.
Most of the time.
Case
Most of the time.
in point.
Well, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. But I will say that's such great advice, because when you are in company with people that do have that deep experience and deep knowledge, it rubs off if you're willing to listen. It really does.
And I think it's important because, and I just want to say to loop it, because I know I'm like not answering the question fully. So we're always trying to help everybody out, not thinking we're going to get helped back, but knowing there's times where we will need help, and we're vulnerable enough as a family to say we need help, right? So in this case, my dad just reached out to a few people that knew more about the communications industry than he did, and then we learned of this, and years later I saw him and I said, thank you so much. And he said, make no mistake about this. I opened the door, you jammed your way through it. And I was like, thank you. And I believed him. And I've done that now for others at least 12 times. And I would do it 12 more times.
That lesson can't be lost. And you know, young folks out there, when they're just getting started, you know, you'll get an opportunity. What you do with it is all about execution and doing something. Or you won't.
Right.
You would not have had the opportunity. She made it happen.
Right.
Right.
I mean, that's
Absolutely.
amazing.
Thank you.
You were manifesting before it was trendy.
Yeah, that's right.
I like to manifest.
But that's just a matter of labeling what people have done literally for generations, right? This goes back well before what media even existed. You know, people were manifesting, you know, centuries ago, for God's sakes. We just
it's in the
figured out
Bible.
what it's called today, right?
Actually.
Exactly. The good book, and I'm no expert on it, but yes, you are correct.
Yeah.
Michelle, let me ask you a question. How did you get into financial planning and that world? Because I know you come from...
How much time you got?
What's that?
How much time you got?
Yeah, lay it on us, baby. We're here.
Okay, so do you guys remember an expression, he who dies with the most toys wins?
Yes.
Okay. So that was an old Malcolm Forbes, 1980s, right? Dual income, no kids, get your MBA and BMW, right, era. Well, my parents had the bumper sticker on their car, and they had a placard on their boat that they bought when I was a senior in high school.
That too. That's so funny.
Well, it wasn't actually a boat. It was a $185,000 yacht that they paid cash for.
Okay.
And the summer between my senior year of high school, which should have been the start of my freshman year of college, my father looked me in the eyes and said, I don't have the money to send you to college.
Wow.
So the boat was called Another Toy. I have another toy story out of that. So I did what I call throwing myself into busy, right? There was not a question. I was going to get an education. I love to learn. And I started working at a bank. That was really my first job out of high school.
Right.
And they asked me to take a class at a community college.
Right.
So I learned about tuition reimbursement. Fast forward 8 years later, corporate America paid about 80% of my way. 8 years later, I got my bachelor's degree. So
That lesson can't be lost either, because too often they don't ask the question, right? There are programs out there. You have to ask the question. You have to be seeking, because finding is reserved for those people that seek, right? So you sought out some help.
I was actually just lucky enough that they asked me to take a class, and then I found out how it worked, and then one thing led to another, and I said, basically the rule is if it pertains to your work and it's something you want to study, a lot of corporations will have that available. So I just took advantage of that. But there were kind of two sides to that story. One was the hard facts of, a bought was built, drain the account, you're not going to college, or we're not paying for it, right? Mm-hmm. And then there was the emotional side, which I never dealt with. I just got right into I'm going to get this done, I'm going to find a way, and I never dealt with my feelings until many, many years later. But underneath dealing with my feelings was really my drive for why I got into my business. Right. So what I learned kind of when I really stopped and took a look within was I was trying to keep two secrets. One, I didn't want anybody to know that had happened, because I thought that they would judge me for what did you do that your parents did that to you, right? And shame needs secrecy.
But that's epidemic these days. I mean, even still today, people are so worried about what everybody else is thinking.
we
it
all
takes
are.
a while to learn to like not give a crap, right? To
It
just
does.
do
Such
your
a hard
thing.
thing, though.
It is.
Yeah. We're
We've been
social
conditioned.
animals. We want to belong, right?
No question.
So if you're being shamed and it's something that's some way you feel like you don't belong, right?
it's that
you're
voice
just
in
going to
here,
hang on to that
right?
shame because you want to be part of the tribe. You want to fit in, right? You want to belong. But the other side of it was not the first time my parents had done that. So I grew up with airplanes, every car imaginable, boats, racing motorcycles, the whole thing. So my parents ran a really successful business, but when they would accumulate large sums of money, they always had their eye on what are we going to spend it on, and it was this huge ticket item. So
In Texas, they say big hat, no cattle.
right, exactly
Right.
right. It's like I always say, like, living in Bergen County, we live in a pretty wealthy area, and none of us probably look at our neighbor and go, okay, you know what? He stays home with the kids, and she's working, and they have 4 kids, and they have a new car that shows up every other year, and a vacation, and multiple vacations. So you go, oh, I wonder how they do it, but you never think they must have went down to the last $5.
Right.
We don't think that.
Epidemic problem right now in the United States.
So I think, money secrets hide in plain sight, and this boat was like the money secret that hid in plain sight, right? So it really, my big why became having grown up feeling so much financial insecurity that as I made my way into financial advising, my big why is so that nobody on my watch ever feels that.
Wow.
Ever feels
That's
that.
deeply personal.
It really
and,
is.
And as a client,
But we all
I'm sure
have
they
it.
feel it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We all have it. You're welcome. You're right. It took
and I
me
think
3 decades to get comfortable with
So
that
many
share.
of us have been in a spot like that. I have to tell you, like and your point about being shamed or being judged or being ridiculed for something that was completely 100% outside of your control. It's outside voices infiltrating the 6-inch space in between your ears, and now all of a sudden you think it's you telling yourself that. That's powerful stuff. When you can turn that around, which you've done really effectively, and so kudos to you, that's when you start to see some of the changes happen in your life on a much bigger scale. And it's not instant, it takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think somebody said, to be vulnerable, to actually get to a place where you
Gotta
put
break
it out
it down
there.
before you rebuild it.
Yeah. In fact, how I actually did it was I put myself in a public speaking course, and I forced myself in New York City to say it in front of a
love
group
that.
of strangers.
Yeah.
And
That first step is a tough one. First time you open up your mouth and you're shaking, you got the sweat pouring down.
I was
and,
crying.
my God,
It was it was tough.
But a good thing to do, because ultimately you figured out that it didn't kill you.
Right.
Some of us, we open up our mouths right away, we feel like we're comfortable, we can talk, but for other folks, it's not quite that easy, especially if you're revealing something that's so deeply personal, right? Ultimately. Let me ask you, my friend, Ms. Beyer, how did you break into the automobile business? Because it was a circuitous route.
I was born into the
Yes,
automobile
but you didn't jump
business.
right in, right?
I did not. I was an attorney in Manhattan for a while, which,
That in and of itself was a journey.
it was.
It was, I know
and,
it.
very similar to you,
You slept your way to the top as
I
well.
did.
I know it.
No.
I felt that about you.
Oh, Pat Beyer. Wasn't me, Mrs. B. I promise you.
No,
Had a feeling.
but my traveling through schools was not easy. I didn't get great grades in high school, and I went to Texas A&M for a semester, partied my ass off, failed out, came back.
I can't. Why'd you bring that up?
but
I'm thinking of the story at
Yeah, well, story that we told earlier, which
Yeah.
I'm not sharing.
You can't, but you should
it's
privately
a good one.
message her so you all
it's a good one.
come in and buy a Ford in any of their many locations, and this one will tell you the story of Texas A&M. Go Longhorns. Just say that.
Okay.
Texas Oil.
And then I came back here, figured myself out down at Stockton State College, and then one summer decided to go to UCSB. Now, at that point, my first semester, I had a 0.5. Literally, my GPA first semester of college was a 0.5.
Really?
And you don't get to just wash that away.
No.
So that becomes part of your cum. And, I did well at Stockton, but how well could I have done? I had maybe like a 3.2 at the time. UCSB in the early 90s, to get into UCSB, it was, a 3.9 with a 1350 SAT, neither of which I had. So I picked up myself and I said, I'm moving to California. I moved to Santa Barbara. I went to City College for a semester, which was amazing. And I walked into the admissions office at UCSB, demanded to speak to the dean, sat down with the dean.
Demanded. I love
Demanded.
that. Demanded.
That's the secret sauce.
It is the secret
Politely,
sauce.
because she said it with a smile on her face.
Well,
Never,
I might
never
have
ever
been
lost your
charming.
self-advocacy. I
yeah,
can promise
see?
you that.
That's
And
what I
yes.
mean. She blinked it. She knows.
Yeah. So I sat down with the dean and I said, how am I getting in? How am I getting into this school? And he laughed at me because he's looking at my transcript going, you're not. And I'm like, give me a goal. Like, tell me what it's going to take. Like, whatever it is. So he's like, all right, you take stats, not a math person. You take stats as an adjunct at UCSB, in addition to your load at City College, which was 18 credits, which was a lot for me.
18 credits is a lot for anybody.
And you get an A in stats, I'll let you in.
Really?
And I'm sitting there going, all right, just give me the opportunity, right?
And I'm going to get it done.
So I hired a tutor, Jonathan Waldman. Thank you, John.
Way to go, John. Good job.
He's amazing.
Well, you didn't hear the end of the story. Before you thank John.
Tutors with benefits, is that how it went? Something?
Hey!
No, I didn't mean
The
that.
benefits was Woodstock pizza and beer. That's what I paid John in. So he tutored me. I got an A in stats, and I got into UCSB. I would not have gotten into that school, And then I went to law school, and it was the same thing. How am I going to get into law school? I have a 3-something. I stink at standardized testing, so I know I'm going to bomb the LSAT. I did okay, but not enough to get me into a school. I had to do the same thing. I had to go, and I ended up going to Hofstra Law, but it was because I worked my ass off personally.
But hold on now, you created an opportunity there. That was not an easy path to get in there either, and I know that. So,
yeah.
That was another, situation where you had to work it to get in there.
I was interning with a professor at Fordham Law, and if I slept with him, he would get me into Fordham.
I didn't want to bring that up, but if you want to, you can.
I'm going.
I'm
going there.
I'm positive this actually is not a joke.
I'm
No,
going
this is the
there.
truth.
No, because
this is
we
true.
all kid, but this does happen.
Oh, no
no, it's
question.
true.
Yeah.
No question.
Yeah.
If
How do
I
you think
slept
the
with
three
him,
of
he'd
you
let
got
me
on the
in.
6, for God's sake? Just
You
kidding,
keep
Mary. I'm
dreaming.
just kidding. Just kidding, Mary. Mary knows we're all here, just so you know.
We're
But-
doing that so we can be with Mary.
There you go. Even better. Even better.
Yeah, so I was working with a law professor at Fordham who helped me get into Hofstra, which I was waitlisted on. So he made some phone calls to help me get off the wait list. So, you make your opportunities.
making your luck, right, by going and pursuing and advocating for yourself, and you get a little help along the way. Like, nobody that I've talked to in my lifetime, especially professionally, that has had big success has ever gotten there without a little bit of luck and some breaks along the way, but they've also advocated on their own behalf, like they've worked for it. Those elements all have to be there. And so when we talk about, some of the folks out there, and I don't care if you're, a 22-year-old college graduate that's just getting started, or you're 50 years old and downsized and you have to start over again, you have to have the ability to advocate for yourself, ask for some help, figure some of this stuff out on your own, learn from your mistakes. I mean, that's life.
But to the girls out there, don't sleep with them.
That's a
like
fact.
I
That's
have
not worth
zero
it.
regrets about not going to Fordham. Zero. Because I did the right thing. And by the way, that professor always really respected me for it. Like, even though he was a bit of an ass, he still, because I held my line on my integrity, that's really important.
Critical piece is the integrity
in
piece.
your world, that happens a lot, right?
Constantly.
Right,
And
so
I
what
really,
would
all
your
kidding
advice
aside,
be?
I've never done that.
But I'm
Never
sure
done
you've
that.
been in the situation, and
I
what'd
have.
you do? But what'd you do? and how'd you survive it, right?
It was
and
awful.
I think that's
Sometimes
the
it
fear.
costs you,
Don't you
right?
think
It'll
that's
cost
It
the
did
you an
fear,
cost me.
opportunity, right?
It did cost me.
And that's the thing, and I think it's everywhere. It's not just in this.
I think I better chime in and put on the record that I didn't sleep with anybody either.
Good. Because her silence was a little screaming out loud.
Wait,
better
Michelle,
say
you have
something.
kids, right?
I do.
So you did sleep with someone just not to get
not
anywhere
to
in your
get
career.
that. Right.
No, but the point is that you will say no to certain opportunities. You'll sacrifice certain opportunities because of your integrity. And I have a lot of respect for you ladies for that. I mean, that's a challenge right now for women.
It just
in
doesn't
business.
count.
Well, I think it's everywhere. Like, what's it?
Yeah.
But you have to ask yourself, what's it going to cost me? Like, what's
Absolutely.
the real cost? Right? At the end of the day, like, I don't know. I'm still trying to get into heaven, so I feel
Right.
at the end of the day, like,
Yeah,
we better,
know the
fly
costs
right.
is Sometimes you can't see the costs because the costs are internally for you.
Well,
in
back
terms
to
of-
what you said and what you said with, I had a situation when I got out of college where I was interviewing at a very big law firm, and the partner took me out to lunch 3 times. I don't imagine that was the normal protocol, and was offering me a salary that was well above what I was getting anywhere else. And I said no because I knew. And weeks later, he was brought up on charges because he had gone across the line. So to your point, what's the cost? Like in that moment, you may think, well, I'm going to go here because it's going to further my career, but no, it's not.
No.
Because something else karmically is going to bite you in
There's
the
no
ass.
doubt. There's
you
no
know?
doubt.
Yeah.
There's no doubt.
no free lunch, right?
You know, we're going to take a break here for just a second. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about those challenges because they're real and they still exist today. You know, and I think, the whole Me Too movement and things that are happening, I know the pendulum will swing, in direction sometimes too far one way or the other. But when we come back, let's talk about some of those challenges that you've seen and experienced yourselves over the course of the career. All right? All right, we'll be back in just a second on the 6.